Now, by popular request, the biggin. This SeaQ Panorama Date is the big sister of the SeaQ that I reviewed a few months ago. Once I had that one on my desk, a surprising number of people asked if I could go hands-on with the Panorama. And Glashütte Original was cool enough to send me one, and not just any Panorama Date, but the newest 2022 reference using this reed green color. The entire SeaQ line started only in 2019. The collection and its vintage-inspired looks came from a watch produced in 1969, the Spezimatic RPTS200. It was a 36mm dive watch with large even numerals, a skin diver case, and an arrow minute hand. I'm kind of fascinated by the SeaQ line. It offers a rare combination of looks and features and price and brand history, and for some people that combination might be confusing. For other collectors, I think that combination might be ideal. It's that division and what drives it that I'm kind of fascinated by. I think you'll see what I mean. There's the SeaQ and the SeaQ Panorama Date. Very similar and very different. While the standard SeaQ is 39.5mm wide, this is not. Very much not. The Panorama Date is 43mm across, 51mm long, and 15.7mm thick. Wait, that can't be right. No, the judges informed me that yes, it's 15.65mm thick. The case has 21mm lug widths, 300 meters of water resistance, and on the full bracelet weighs about 190 grams. That's a bit. The watch is in compliance with the DIN 8306 and ISO 6425 dive watch standards. Meeting these requirements isn't all that rare, but it does require some extra thought and some specific design elements, like a triangular marker on a unidirectional bezel, certain Lume applications, and bezel markers every minute, which a certain very famous dive watch does not have. I find it interesting that Glashütte Original decided to meet these official dive standards for a watch that costs $12,400. That's right. On this bracelet, $12,400. Why have a $12,000 watch meet international dive watch requirements? You're not going diving with this. But on the other wrist, wouldn't you feel disappointed if you paid that much for a dive watch and it wasn't officially dive capable? We are ridiculous people. This is a large watch. It's unusually large. And I don't mean its dimensions are unusually large. There are much larger dive watches. I own some. But I mean that the way it shows its size is unusual. You're seeing the Panorama Date on my 7-inch wrist, and I think it looks good. What's uncommon, what's unusual, I think, are the proportions and the case style. This, like all SeaQs, uses a skin diver case and a narrow bezel, and on the 43mm case it uses 21mm lugs. That combination of elements makes the Panorama Date look kind of bulbous to me. Literally like a bulb, narrow, wide, then narrow. That doesn't mean I don't like it, I'm just describing what I see, so remember, if I ever call you bulbous, I probably mean no offense. Of course, being 15.7mm thick adds to that bulbosity, not a word. Even though the case is only 14mm thick and the crystal adds 2mm, it's a tall boy. But get this, despite its size and weight, the watch is very comfortable, for me. And I think that has nearly everything to do with the bracelet and the clasp. The bracelet is fine. I'm not into the polished center links. I think this would look much better with a fully brushed bracelet. It would emphasize the sporty nature of the SeaQ, but I get it. A lot of people want to see some bling on that thing if they're going to spend $12,000 on a toy. What I do like about the bracelet is that it only tapers 2mm. Despite it making the watch look and feel larger, I think that width is important in distributing the weight of the watch head and avoiding it feeling top-heavy. But what I truly adore about this bracelet is the clasp, specifically the on-the-fly adjustment system. The Glashütte Original logo is a button. Pressing the button allows the bracelet to extend by as much as 8mm. And if you want to shorten the bracelet, you don't even need to press the button. Just push the bracelet into the clasp and the system ratchets and locks in the new length. All this tech and the clasp is thinner than most clasps that don't have this system. You can find this system on all SeaQ bracelets, and the IWC Mark 18 bracelets, and the bracelet on the Alangansona Odysseus. And it is my favorite clasp on any watch I've ever worn. Regardless of the company that uses it, the clasp is made by the Swiss company Bracelet SA. And I only know that because 2 YouTube commenters told me, so thank you Alec and Andy. So between the bracelet weight distribution and the best-in-clasp adjustment, I can wear this 190-gram watch all day without even thinking about it. You know, until I look at my wrist, and then you can't fucking miss this thing. Because of that narrow bezel that I mentioned, the SeaQ has a relatively large dial for a dive watch, and it makes for a bold viewing experience. It's like the IMAX of dive watches, which is a simile that somehow made sense when I first thought of it. I don't know. The point is the dial feels large, spacious, and really legible to me. Under the highly domed sapphire crystal are polished and applied markers and numerals, making them all readable in any light, and that includes no light, because the hands, markers, and numerals are all filled with what seems to be an imperial ton of superluminova. This is bright, acceptably long-lived, and I'm into it. I'm not sure what it is about my brain, but lumed numerals, not markers, but numerals, very satisfying to me. The dial is a matte green color, which I think is a cool alternative to the flashy sunburst dial of the blue reference. This is much more subtle. So subtle that the other day when I showed this to a friend indoors, he said, "Oh, they also make a green one." I then informed him that this was the green, and when he tilted the watch towards the light, he saw it. And then there's the titular Panorama Date. I'd say it's placed at about 418. I kinda hope that the date window is at this seemingly random location just to fuck with all you date window obsessives, but I'm pretty sure it's to maintain some cohesion between the SeaQ Panorama and the other Pano watches, the Panomatic Lunar and the Pano Reserve. The SeaQ uses a very different movement from those watches, but there's something to be said for building a design language. Do I mind that the dial text isn't vertically centered with the date window? Psh, come on, I'm fine. Nothing's ever not fine here. The date is made up of 2 wheels so that each numeral operates independently. Totally unnecessary and totally cool, which, you know, that's kinda luxury watches for you. The wheel changes so fast that you almost can't see it happen in real life, let alone on a video that's 60 frames per second. Behind the date wheel is the in-house Glashutte original 3613 movement. It's a pretty cool engine. The 3613 beats at 4 Hz and has 100 hours of power reserve. That's just over 4 days. It uses a free-sprung balance and a silicon balance spring, which means it's resistant to magnetism and more resistant to temperature fluctuations than most metallic balance springs. The movement is nicely decorated with Glashutte stripes, heat-blued screws, and a 21-karat gold rotor weight. It's also interestingly laid out with 5 of the gears of the winding system all arranged in a row. I actually don't know what this set of connected gears is called. Speak up in the comments and take me to school. Every caliber 36 goes through a 24-day testing at Glashutte Original. To pass the tests, the movement must have a rate deviation of better than -2 to +6 seconds per day, so slightly better than the Swiss COSC certification. If you're like me, first, my condolences, and second, as you're hearing all this about the SeaQ, it's that price tag that you can't quite get your head around. $12,000. Again, that's if you're like me. Maybe you're not. Maybe you have a clearer understanding of luxury goods, and even an acceptance that pricing isn't exactly arbitrary but doesn't reflect inherent value. And that's because there isn't any inherent value. Whether it's worth that price is entirely up to you, the potential buyer, and nobody else. From my time with the SeaQ Panorama Date, I can tell you at least that it's unlike any dive watch it's competing with, and that alone is quite a feat. I think this watch exemplifies a true luxury dive watch with its capabilities, its style, its details, and its price. Whether to you this combination is confusing or ideal, maybe you now have a better understanding of. Me? I'm all about it. For all those people who love large dive watches, and there are a lot, and all those people who don't want the usual suspects, and there are a lot, I think this watch offers quite a bit. And now that I say it out loud, I think I'm actually one of those people.